Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsal, and we're going to be talking about public relations, getting your name out there. What does it look like to have that piece of marketing going for your law firm? And for that, I have an expert for you. Her name is Janet Falk. Janet is a public relations professional and chief strategist at Falk Communications and Research. She advises attorneys, business owners, and consultants on contacting reporters, LinkedIn, marketing communications, networking, and newsletters. And she has written an ebook on this topic, which we're going to dive into today to talk about her specific strategy when it comes to public relations. Janet, welcome to the show.
Moshe, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. And the first thing I do when I have a guest on the podcast is I want our listeners to know a little bit more about you. And I just want to know like the backstory. How did you come to become this public relations professional and expert? And why?
Okay, I have an eclectic background. If you've been to my website or gotten my business card, you'll see that my logo is the letter F and it's embedded in an octagon. Because Moshe, I'm not a round peg, I'm not a square peg, I'm an octagonal peg. I don't fit the mold of most other people in my profession. My background includes higher education, Wall Street, law firms, and nonprofits. So you can see that encloses many different sectors of the market today. So I started my career as a college professor, and when I saw I wasn't going to get tenure at a local college and there were no other opportunities, I went to an intensive MBA style program at New York University, where I studied accounting and finance and corporate strategy and marketing. And from there, I moved to the Value Line Investment Survey, where I was performing close textual analysis of financial statements, which is not that different from studying literature when you're trying to find definitive points of contact and make sense out of them so that you can persuade the reader of your point of view. And in my work as a securities analyst, I found that I was engaging with investor relations professionals, and I thought, I could do this job because I understood how analysts spoke and how they thought and how they wrote. And I could be on the other side of the table, which would be more of a teaching role. And so I took a class in investor relations and subsequently got a job at a public relations agency. I've worked at several public relations agencies and in-house. And eventually I found my way to one agency whose primary client was one of the AmLaw 50. So I was working with attorneys every day and trying to elicit from them meaningful insights that would help someone else to save time, save money, and make more money because they would be following the insight and wisdom of this particular attorney. And I was very good at placing these attorneys in industry publications, legal publications, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Law Journal, and so on. And then came the financial crisis of 2008, and many companies cut back on their marketing activities. And so I was let loose and set up my single shingle, as I had from time to time in the course of my career. And now I work with attorneys who have a solo practice or are members of a small firm. I also work with business owners and consultants. I've worked with accounting firms and nonprofits, and I do a variety of activities. As you mentioned, I introduce them to reporters so that they can be seen as someone who has insight into a particular problem. And someone reading that news story will think, aha, that attorney understands my problem. I should get in touch with that person. I also help them to improve their presence online, whether it's rewriting content for a website or helping them with their LinkedIn profile and their activity on LinkedIn. I also help them publish articles. And if they want to have a newsletter, I can help them with that as well. And I talk often on these subjects to bar associations and to individual firms and to networking groups and so forth. So I'm glad to be able to share this background with your audience and see how I can be helpful to them.
Perfect. Great story, and thank you for filling me in. What the audience doesn't know is that you had to really work hard to get onto this show, and it wasn't by design. We didn't do it on purpose, but Janet reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love to come on and be an expert on your show." And the answer is always yes, unless we have a reason that we think that the person who's reaching out is not an expert, or we've had a bad experience with them. And somehow you got lost in the shuffle and needed to reach out, I think more than once, to us to get onto the show. But you were persistent, and you're here now, and really appreciate you making sure that you got here. So let's make the best of it. You mentioned a number of things that you do with small law firms, and that's our target audience. That's who's listening to the show. So let's dive into that. First of all, my first question that I think my audience is asking, and that's my job, is to try to get in their head and figure out, like, what do they want me to find out from you? I think the first thing that they're asking is when am I ready, or when is the right time for me to focus on this part of marketing? There's so many different aspects of marketing, and when a law firm first starts out, there's some basic things that they probably should be doing that probably come before what you do. And then there's things that they might be doing that probably can come after, and they're doing them first. So in the pecking order of, I don't know, designing your website, getting your Google My Business profile set up, reaching out and networking with friends, family, and, the immediate circle that you have access to. And then other things like getting placed on SEO and writing articles on your website and stuff like that. Where's the right entry point for Janet to come in and help a law firm?
Wow, that is a lot of activity, and it's hard to prioritize. But I would say first, you must have a website. If you don't have a website, you're not in business, because no matter where you go, people are going to look for your website, and not having one means that you're not a professional. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you have to have a LinkedIn profile. Not having one of those means that you're not in business and you're not a professional. So those are the two things that you have to set up. And they can be rather skeletal initially, and then you can be adding more meat and more content to them as you develop your practice and as you develop your firm. But those are the first two things that you should have. Of course, you have to have a professional photo. You can't be showing something of yourself with anybody else, and you can't be showing something that's from more than 5 years ago, because you look different. Your hair is different. Your facial hair, if you have it, is different. Your hair color might be a little different, and so on. Those are three things that you have to have initially: are a website, a LinkedIn profile, and a photo. Now, you're going to send an announcement, probably a virtual announcement, because you want to communicate with the many people that you know. So I've written a newsletter called Your Gold Mine of 5,000 Contacts. And Moshe, I'm sure you have many more than 5,000, but most people don't realize that they have 5,000 contacts. So let's think about the people that were at your previous law firm, because you might have left a law firm to set up your own practice, the people that you went to law school with, your clients, your lapsed clients, the people that you served on a bar association committee with, the people that you know socially, and so on and so on. And you can see how over time you would have 5,000 contacts, and even more so. So you want to be sure that you connect with them on LinkedIn, and you want to make sure that they are on your email list. I would encourage people to have a newsletter at least quarterly, if not monthly, because a newsletter is something that passively comes into someone's email box, and either they read it or they delete it. But in any event, they have seen your name once a quarter or once a month. And that's something that's very easy to handle. There are a lot of free resources out there. MailChimp is free to the first 1,000 subscribers. If you want to put more money on it, then you can have a Weber or constant contact or one of other providers. I use MailChimp because it's the easiest, and many public relations professionals prefer MailChimp for the same reason. So you've got your website, your LinkedIn profile, your photo, your newsletter. And at this point, I would also start looking at networking groups. Have you joined the local bar association? And I mean reaching beyond the state bar association to the one in your county or the one in your city. And I would think also of related organizations from which you get referrals. So do you get referrals from accountants because you work in trust and estates? Do you get referrals from psychologists and social workers because you work in matrimonial or personal injury? So think about those professional membership organizations or those industry trade associations where you find the bulk of your referrals and clients so that you can be active in those groups and find ways that you can participate. We can talk about this a little bit more. Once you've integrated yourself into these other groups, then think about publishing articles there. What is it that people are talking about, but they're not writing about it, where you can add a particular insight? Have you had a certain client success with a new or innovative or, somehow path-breaking solution through the law, and you and the client can partner on this article? In fact, that's a very good strategy to contact the membership organization and trade association of your client and mention that your client and you are co-authoring this article. So this way you have more credibility with the editor of that publication because they know that the client, being the co-author, is having the same issues and problems that are keeping other members up at night. So that's another thing that you might consider. Don't just be pointing your own point of view, but also be sharing the experience that you have with the client who's going to be giving you this testimonial as to how working with you solved this particular problem. So I think that shows a lot of ways that you can start out with, your website, your LinkedIn profile, your photo, and then your email newsletter, building up your contact list, joining organizations, and then, getting involved in the organization in a way that you might be able to publish an article, perhaps co-authoring with a client to showcase your success, and the client giving you added credibility as an author and a testimonial.
Now, I want to go back. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned was joining your local bar association or even the trade associations of where your referral partners might be. And I think that it's important to note for our audience that just simply being a member of the organization doesn't do anything for you. You actually need to show up to their networking opportunities, to their social events, to the things that they do where you can get exposure to the membership, exposure to other people, and start to connect with people and get to know them. Janet, do you have any pointers or tips for how somebody should conduct themselves at a networking event? What is a good strategy to use to make connections that are impactful when attending those?
Sure. When I go to a networking event, I never walk into the room by myself. Instead, I go to meet my welcoming committee. And by my welcoming committee, I mean the following. Before I go to the event, I contact the leaders and officers of the organization. I identify them by going to the website of the organization. Who is the president? Who is the vice president? Who is the program chair? Who is the membership chair? These are the movers and shakers of the organization, and they know everyone else who's going to be in the room. And I write a note to them on email, and I can figure out their email, usually from their professional affiliation, or if not, I find them on LinkedIn. And the subject line is, will we meet at the October 10th networking event? Right? And I introduce myself. I say, your name came to my attention as an officer of the Downtown Accountants Association, let's just call it. And I'm looking forward to attending your networking event on October 10th. I'm a public relations professional and I work with accountants. And in fact, my client, ABC Accountant, is a member of the Downtown Accountants Association. I'm looking to join your group and get involved and learn how I can be a member participating in your activities. Now, Moshe, you get this email from Janet at janetlfalk.com. You're the president, you're the membership chair. You who have never met me before, what are you going to do when you get an email from someone who says, I'm interested in attending your networking event and joining your organization?
Sure. Come on over. Let's meet.
Exactly. You're going to write back to me and say, Janet, of course I'm going to the networking event because I am the officer of the organization and I'm so excited to meet you. Now, I'm not going to leave that there. I'm going to write back to you and I'm going to say, Moshe, thank you so much for your note. I'm thrilled to know that you will be attending. And by the way, I will be wearing a red jacket so that you will be sure to find me in this crowded room. Now, I always wear identifying distinctive clothing because I don't want to look like everybody else. Now, if I'm a trial attorney, I can't wear a red jacket, but I can wear a red pocket square. Don't wear a red tie. Everyone wears a red tie. Wear a red pocket square so that someone will be able to find you in the crowded room. Now, I go to the event and I show up at the registration desk and I say, I'm here to meet Moshe Rosenblum Amsel. Can you point him out to me? He's expecting to meet me here. And they say, oh, yes, he's the fellow over there with the red pocket square. Moshe, I introduce myself. How are you? I'm Janet Falk. I'm so glad to meet you. Tell me about the organization. Tell me how you got involved. Tell me what your plans are for membership and so on and so forth. And now you are courting me as a member. You want me to join the organization. You're telling me about why you got involved and what your plans are and so on and so forth. It's not about me. It's about you courting me so that I'll become a member of the organization. And after a point in time, we all know networking conversations can go on for a little too long. I'll say, Moshe, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I'd like to keep in touch with you. If you would like to keep in touch with me, here's my business card and you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. I often share tips and best practices for communications. And by the way, would you introduce me to Pat Schwartz? I'd really like to meet her. She's the president of the organization. And Moshe, what are you going to say? No, I can't introduce you to Pat.
Nope.
Of course you're going to introduce me. You're going to introduce me and I'm going to go over to Pat and I'm going to say, Pat, I'm so glad to meet you. I'm Janet Falk. I'm a public relations professional. I was talking with Moshe. He was telling me about his ideas for programs and I think they're really innovative and exciting and so on. And Pat's going to think that Moshe, he's on the ball. He's bringing in new members. And Moshe, you're going to think that Janet Falk, she just made me look brilliant to Pat, the president of the organization. And then I'm going to take a photo of me and you and Pat. I'm going to post that on LinkedIn after the event. And I'm going to chat with Pat and I'm going to ask her who I should meet at the event. Maybe she can tell me who the vice president is. And she'll introduce me to that person, say, oh, he's over there in the green jacket. Fine, I'll go over and meet that person. And I'm going to say, Tom, Pat told me that I should talk to you, right? And now I'm working the room, right? I have identified the leaders of the organization. I have introduced myself to them in advance. I have warmed up the room. They are my welcoming committee, and they are going to help me meet the others on my list so that by the end of the evening, I have met many of the officers of the organization, and they have introduced me to the movers and shakers within the group who I need to meet because they align with my business interests and with my business goals. So that's what you do. You warm up the room in advance by introducing yourself before you walk into the room. And then after, of course, you're going to follow up, say, Moshe, it was great to meet you, and I'm going to join the organization. Let's have coffee sometime and become better acquainted. You know, I'm a public relations professional. I want to contribute to the newsletter or in any communications activities that you have. So that's what I recommend going into any networking situation, whether you've been there before or you're going there for the first time. You warm up the room so that you don't walk in there by yourself. You meet your welcoming committee and you get them to court you to become a member and have them introduce you to the other members in the room who you would like to meet.
I love the way you went about this. So many people go to networking events and they don't have a plan or a strategy. So each person they want to introduce themselves, it's kind of like this awkward moment where you're going to somebody blind, you don't know them, and you want to just walk up to them and say, "Hey, how are you? I'm so and so." Some people are introverts, some people are shy, and some people are simply just, humans with fears of being rejected and things like that. Makes it very difficult to work a room. Your strategy allows you to get introductions to the people in the room, which really takes away that whole piece of it and can make it for a much more effective networking session. So I really like that strategy. One question I have for you is, staying on this networking topic for a moment. Uh, Say I work the room in this way, I get introduced to a lot of people, and people are, every person I'm talking to is then making another introduction to somebody else they know. Um, by the end of the night, I will have spoken to hopefully a lot of different people. How do you keep track of who had you had what conversation with? Do you simply have an amazing memory, or is there a system that you use to somehow know what it was that was discussed? Because when you go to follow up, you don't want to just say, "Hey, I met you at this
Yes,
event, let's go for coffee." It's much better if you say, "Hey, I met you at this event, we talked about XYZ, you were telling me about this problem you were having. Actually, I even looked into it for you, and like there's a next level of interactiveness that can be had if we can remember what those conversations were."
right, right. Well, I think you'll remember that I offered you my business card so that we could stay in touch. And I mentioned that I have a monthly newsletter if you would like to stay in touch with me. So I, in turn, will ask for your business card, and I will make a note on your business card. Did I promise this person a contact? Someone who has an aligned interest? Or did I promise this person a copy of an article or a newsletter that I've read? Did this person promise me anything? And I make a note of that on the back of your business card. And if you didn't give me your business card, then I make sure to write down that information on my business card, and I keep it in a different pocket. So I keep my business cards in my left pocket, and I keep the business cards I gather in my right pocket so that I don't mix them up and I don't give away something that someone else gave to me. And I'm very thorough about doing this kind of thing. And I don't automatically subscribe people to my newsletter. I have to get their permission first, because otherwise they'll be offended and it's bad email hygiene. So I ask for business cards, I give out business cards, and I make notations and so on. Now, I do want to mention it's a little bit different if you're in a virtual networking meeting, and we are still going to virtual networking meetings. Okay? And that is, during the course of the meeting, you have the opportunity to post in the chat your contact information. So what I do is I have a draft of my contact information, and I keep it in my email. And I just copy and paste from this draft email, and I put it in the chat of the discussion in the virtual networking group. And that way it goes very smoothly. I never have to worry, did I drop a digit from my phone number or from my email address? Did I mess something up there? So if you're in a virtual networking group, then I recommend you use this approach of information exchange by having a draft email that you can simply copy and paste into the chat and make that available to others. And I would encourage you to do that several times, because people are always joining and leaving the meeting, and so you don't know if they might have missed something earlier in the session. So you want to make sure that everyone sees your contact information there.
Yeah, I love these are great little nuggets and tidbits of tips and tricks for having success in both in-person and virtual networking meetings. So I love you sharing that with us. Now, one of the things that you do as a professional, and you mentioned at the beginning, but then when I asked you about when's the right time to get you involved, you went through all the different things, you skipped over this one. So I want to go back to it, and that's speaking engagements. um, what exactly is the strategy there to be able to be highlighted? And do you mean signature talks and on a stage, or is it more like, hey, there's a news article and we're going to get you onto primetime TV as a professional that they want to interview in relation to, a specific event that has happened?
Okay, let me say about getting in the news just in general. Okay, when you see someone in the news and they're talking about something that's in your area of practice, I'm sure you're saying to yourself, why are they talking to that attorney and not me? I know everything about that, right? And here's your answer, Moshe. Reporters call the people they know. They don't call an attorney that they've never heard of, because why would they just randomly dial some attorney if they don't know who they are and what they have to say about a subject and why anyone else should care? So I introduce my clients, and I have a form that I use for that. You can find it on my website, called a media profile. And the media profile provides contact information and a broad description of your background, and then highlights several issues that people should be more concerned about, but they're not getting talked about enough in the news. So has there been a change in regulation? Has there been a change in the law? Is there going to be some new requirement in place? And if you don't do this, then you will be subject to some sort of violation or penalty and so on. So if you have an idea on this line of something that will help someone else save time, save money, and make more money, because they will be staying within the bounds of permissible activity. It might be an individual, it might be a business owner, it might even be a corporation. Then you should be introducing yourself to reporters at the local news, the local business news, the national business news, and the industry trade association and the legal publications in your jurisdiction, because that's probably where you're confined to working, and say, this is a hot topic and I can speak about it, and this is my insight, and I want to be in touch with you so that we can discuss this further. Now, how do you identify reporters at these different publications? There are several ways. First, many times a publication will have the reporter's email address in the print or in the online edition so that you can contact them directly. Another way is to look at the masthead of the publication. Many times publications will list all the reporters and the editors and what areas they cover, whether it's banking or pharmaceutical or fashion, finance, and it'll have their email address, sometimes even their phone number. So you can find it either in the article itself or you can find it in the masthead. Maybe the reporter has a presence on Twitter. X. Most reporters do, and you can look up their bio in their presence in this environment, Twitter or X. And why do reporters have their email address in their bio, Moshe?
So you can reach out to them.
So you can reach out to them. They don't want you posting your idea in general to the Twitterverse or to the Xverse. They want you to contact them directly. So they put their bio, their email address right there in their Twitter bio. Many reporters have their own website where they publish all their articles, even separate from what's stored on the publication's website. So you can look for the reporter and see if they have their own website, and you can contact them through the Contact Me page on their website. So it's very easy to get in touch with reporters because they make it easy for you, or their publication makes it easy for you to get a hold of their email address. And if you can't find them that way, you can look for them on LinkedIn or Facebook, but these other ways are more professional. So if you have an idea of something that's a hot topic that's not being sufficiently discussed and people need to know about it to save time, save money, and make more money, then you can identify the reporters who cover this area and introduce yourself professionally using this tool that I call a media profile, which is on my website. People can look for it there. I can provide you with the link later. So that's one thing that you can think about. Now, if you're talking about other kinds of speaking engagements, I would advise people to start small. Start with your local networking group, your local chamber of commerce, your local bar association, your local industry association, and then work your way up from there, okay? Because I think that's the best. Also, you have a podcast. Many people enjoy speaking on podcasts, and certainly you can introduce yourself in the same way that I suggested about the media profile to the Bar Association, to the podcast host, to the Chamber of Commerce, and so on, and say, this is a hot topic. People need to know more about it. I'm prepared to speak to your group and to your audience about this issue. So I think those are ways that you can think about how you can get more speaking engagements. You should start small, work with the local press, and then expand beyond to a larger national profile.
Okay, I love that. And is it helpful to go with more than one topic, or is that confusing the issue? I've heard in the past that you should, when you're pitching to a publisher or some sort of medium that you want to be on, that you should always give at least three topics for them to choose from, so that if one doesn't interest them, there's two others for them to see. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good idea. It's a good idea to have, 3 to 5 bullet points of these are the general areas of my practice. I deal with, contracts in this area and employment issues in that area and, something else. But more specifically, these are the hot topics, and then have another 3 listed there so that reporters can be more specific about the hot topic. But it may be that they want to have you in their database for when that other broader topic comes around and you can provide additional insight. So I think you should think broadly, and then you should also think more specifically. Yes, you should have more than one topic.
Now, you have an analogy related to baseball that you use in your book for people to remember these different things and stay on top of them. Can you share that with us and how people can use that to make sure that they're on top of their marketing game?
Sure. So I call my book Create and Monitor Your Marketing RBI. And as a baseball fan, Moshe, you know that RBI stands for runs batted in. And that is the way that people get ahead in baseball, is they score more runs than the other side. And I chose a baseball theme because it has activity and productivity and profitability. And I think that's what people are really after. Now, the first way I call get on base, and that's networking. So we've talked about procedures in terms of improving your networking skill. And I want to remind people that it's not the first person that you meet, but it's the person who is in their circle. But it's also the person who is in your circle. So I like to do something I call networking squared, which is I get together with 2 people who I think should meet each other. So this one is an attorney in white collar crime, and this one is an attorney in securities law, and I think that they should be talking to each other. Now, I get the benefit of getting up to date on what's happening with both of their practices while they are getting to know each other and figuring out where their interests where their interests align, I mean to say, and how they can be helpful to each other. So it's not the first person that you meet. It may be someone in their circle, or it may be you have someone in your circle that you can put together a networking squared get together, whether you do an in-person coffee or you do a 3-way Zoom chat. It's fine. So that's get on base networking. The second one I call here's the pitch, right? And that's about speaking. And we've already talked about this one too, how you can be a guest on podcasts, how you can be speaking to different networking groups, chambers of commerce, and so on. But you can also be speaking to law schools. You can also be speaking to professional membership associations, whether they're other attorneys in the local bar association or whether they're accountants, or if you deal with a lot of jewelers or bakers, then you might want to join their networking group, their association. So we have networking, speaking. The third one I call keeping the box score. The box score is, of course, writing what the batter does when they're at bat. And there are many ways that you can be writing. I mentioned articles, and you can partner with a client to write an article. I mentioned having a newsletter, which I think you should have. at least quarterly, if you can't manage to do it monthly. And these are ways that you can be sharing your ideas on a timely basis of what people ought to be doing. Now we come to the fourth one, which we've talked about before, and that's root for the home team. So that's getting involved in the trade association of your target market. So if you're dealing with accountants who are your referral partners, then you want to be joining the local accounting association. And you will probably be one of one or two, only a few attorneys who are involved in these organizations. So naturally, people are going to want to talk to you because they might not know other attorneys who have your similar background and interest, and you'll have ready access to this pool of potential referral sources. And maybe you can even contribute a periodic column on hot issues that people need to be thinking about in their accounting practice or whatever industry they are in. So we've had networking, speaking, writing, being active in the trade association of your target market. And now we come to the cleanup, which is cover all the bases, which means promote whatever you're doing online and share it in your newsletter. So for example, if you're going to be speaking at an event or going to a networking event, then you post on LinkedIn and say, I'm looking forward to speaking at this group. I'm looking forward to attending this networking event. And then afterwards, you're going to report on what happened. Great information and discussion at the group where I spoke about topic 1, 2, and 3, or great networking at the organization where I met so-and-so and so-and-so. And this is a way of broadcasting what's going to happen and then acknowledging and supporting the organization where the activity took place. And let me just elaborate a little bit more on this speaking at an organization in advance. If you say, I'm excited to speak at the Downtown Accountants Association about topic 1, topic 2, and topic 3, here's the link to register, and you post that on LinkedIn or you put it in your periodic newsletter. Then people are going to have one of 3 responses. So their first response is, Janet Falk is talking on this topic. I better sign up. I know she's a great speaker. And the second response is, gee, I don't know who Janet Falk is, but she's talking about topic 2. I'm interested in topic 2. I'm going to check out her website, and then I'm going to sign up for this program if I think it's going to be worthwhile. So either they're going to sign up right away, or they're going to check out your website and your LinkedIn profile to confirm that you are the person that they want to hear about to talk about this hot topic. And then the third way is, gee, I can't make that date of October 10th, but you know what? This is such an interesting topic. We should invite that Janet Falk to come and speak to our organization because we are also interested in this issue. So before you speak at an event, you promote it in advance with an idea of what you're going to be talking about and provide the registration link. And then after you speak at the event, you're going to say, great discussion, great conversation at this event where we talked about topic 1, topic 2, and topic 3. And for more information, here's a summary of what I spoke about. Here's an excerpt of the slides and so on, so that you're always in the know. You're always seen out there talking about hot issues that people need to know more about and how you are a resource for this information. And you're not only promoting yourself, you're promoting the organization. And that's going to win you kudos from your colleagues and the other members of the association.
Janet, I really love, so many different ideas and tips and insider tricks that you shared here. One question that I have, and we're going to wrap this up very, very shortly. One question that I have for you is, if somebody doesn't want to do this all themselves, now some of it they have to, right? Like the networking piece, meeting people, you have to do that, right? But there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that are setting you up to make that happen, that perhaps you don't want to be busy with. You don't have time for it, right? Like that's the biggest issue that we have with small law firm owners is, oh, I don't have time for that. How can you as a professional provide a service? Like what is it that you do to help our law firm owners with making this happen. And what does it cost for something like that? Like what kind of budget do you need in order for you to be able to invest in services?
Okay. So let me say that, yes, you're right, Moshe. I mean, when it comes to networking, you have to do it. When it comes to speaking, you have to do it. But the other activities that I mentioned, some of the groundwork can be laid by a professional who is experienced in public relations and marketing communications and who understands the law firm market and who understands what it is that it takes to accomplish these goals of raising your profile, attracting new clients, keeping in touch with lapsed clients, keeping in touch with referral sources, and being seen as a resource to others who have these kinds of situations and problems. So what I can do is I can set up templates that will help you to be introduced to reporters, as I mentioned, that will help you to write articles for publication, either in legal publications or in industry publications, whether by yourself or co-authoring with a client. I can help you with writing them. I can help you with editing and placing those articles. When it comes to your LinkedIn presence and activity, I can help you with polishing your profile and suggesting ideas that you could be writing about in terms of periodic posts on LinkedIn to be seen more broadly. So these are all things that I can help you with. But in the end, when it comes down to the actual execution, you, the attorney, have to make the decision of what your commitment is going to be. I like to think that my marketing RBI profile, my marketing RBI paradigm works in this way. On every Thursday night, I think about my 5 activities and which ones did I do. And if I didn't do one of them, then I'm going to do it on Friday because I want to make sure that I'm keeping up a steady flow of information from myself to my many contacts out there so that they will be reminded of me and they will be thinking of me when certain situations arise. The way I work with clients is on a retainer basis, which could be, 10 hours a month, or it could be that they buy a block of hours, 5 hours or 10 hours, in order to execute a discrete project. So if they want to publish an article, they can contact me for 5 hours and we will discuss the idea, come up with potential topics, figure out who anyone should be the partner with, and work on submitting the draft proposal and work on the polished article and then promoting the article once it actually gets published. Because it's not just publishing the article, it's making sure that other people see it because not everybody pays attention to the first issue that comes across their desk and so on. So that's how I work with my clients. I work with them either on, an hourly basis for 10 hours a month, or they buy a package of my hours for 5 or 10 hours, and then we go forward from there.
Awesome. And you have that ebook available. As we close out the show, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I have a feeling that the ebook's the thing you're going to share. But if not, then you get a 2-for-1. You get to share 2 things. But the way I close the show out is I ask you leave one parting piece of advice or wisdom for our audience, and then share with our audience how they can get in touch with you or take the next steps with you, follow you somewhere. Where do you want to direct our audience to go if they really enjoyed this topic and they want to learn more about what you have to offer?
Great. So the one thing that I would remind your clients, your audience, is that you are in the you business. You must invest in your practice. Your employees, your clients, your competitors, no one else is going to invest in your practice. And so you are in the you business and you must invest in your practice. And that includes your public relations and marketing communications activities. Now, if you have tried different approaches to my 5 ways of networking, speaking, writing, being active in the trade association, and promoting yourself online, and you find that some are more easy and some are harder and some are yielding returns and some are not, you don't have to do them all, but you should at least try them all and, and give them a reasonable shot. If people want to be in touch with me, I have a lot of resources on my website, which you can see here is Janet L for law, falk.com. So in the resources section, I have sample letters, sample media profile, and all my newsletters, which come out monthly, are on my website, so they can subscribe to them and they can look for more information about past newsletters and so on. And of course, the ebook is available for $9.99. I sell that on Venmo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janet. We will link all of this up in the show notes. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Really a lot of cool tips and tricks, some that I haven't heard before. I'm always looking for new ideas. And I really love this idea of getting to know the people who are running the networking event beforehand, so that you can find them when you get there and let them do the introducing, take all the awkwardness out of a networking event and just have it be super productive for you. And make sure you have a newsletter and make sure that you are getting some visibility in front of your reporters or trade journals or things like that, giving you opportunities to get in front of your potential target market a lot more. So all great stuff. Thank you so much, Janet, for being here with us. Folks, we're here every Thursday with an amazing brand new guest, another episode here on the Profit with Law podcast. We've been doing this consistently since 2019, and we do not plan to stop. And as you can tell, if this is your first time tuning in, we bring amazing guests here on the show. We have great conversations around really important topics for you as a law firm owner or manager, whatever your position is. And we appreciate you as a listener. So make sure you hit the subscribe button in your podcast player so that you get notified the next time that we have an episode drop. And take care, enjoy, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much, Moshe. Take care.